Hey guys, Mr. Carizzi.
And Miss Pickenich.
Here to help you guys with your SGO spreadsheet. Okay, so let's start off in the upper left-hand corner with your SGO input. Please just quickly notice that any cells with red borders are editable, and anything that is yellow you cannot change. So everything up in the left-hand corner is red, so we're going to put our name. We're going to put our school. We're going to put what grade or grades that we teach. I know some of us teach multiple grades. The course name, Ms. Pickenich teaches Algebra 2 Honors with Trig, so that's what she's going to put. And the interval of our SGO should be from September of this year until April of 2018. Okay, so now that we've got that set up, let's start inputting our students. What I do is I would go to Genesis and generate a Excel spreadsheet of my students' names. So let's pretend we did that. So we're going to just copy and paste our students' names into the spreadsheet. Okay. Column 1 is for our pre-assessment or for prior year grades. So this is how this works. If you are teaching sophomores to seniors, and every single student in your class, you can access their prior year grade. If they do not have their prior year grade, whether it's because they were a transfer or because they didn't take the same subject matter that they're taking this year, then you have to give a pre-assessment. If one student doesn't have a prior year grade, you must give a pre-assessment to the entire class. So Ms. Pickenich has to give a pre-assessment because she's teaching freshmen from out of district. So we're going to post her pre-assessment scores. Column 2 is going to be for attendance. Please note that attendance is going to be taken at October 15th. So on October 15th, you're going to see how many absences your students have, and that is the number that you're going to put in for this column. Another thing to note for absences is that the only way we can get this to work with the spreadsheet is that it has to be done as negative numbers. So if a student has 5 absences, you must put it in as a -5. If a student has 3 absences, it's a -3. You cannot put positive numbers in for the absence category.
So sorry, everyone.
Lastly, column 3 is our Unit 1 assessment. So everybody, before their SGO is done, should have been given a Unit 1 test of some sort. And Ms. Pick is going to copy and paste those grades in. Okay, so now if we look at the left-hand side, okay, we have our tiers. So for prior year's grade for attendance for test 1, depending on how many students you have in your class, depends on the number of tiers. If you have 30 students or less, you're going to have 2 tiers. If you have 30 or more more than 30 students in your SGO, you will do 3 tiers. So it's recommended that you use the suggestions given to you by the SGO data, except for attendance. Everybody has to follow the same attendance scoring. So the first things first is, if you want to use the data from the top, you would go down to the bottom, and in a little drop-down menu, you would select how many tiers you're using. So we'll do 2 tiers first. So let's say we have less than 30 students. So for prior year grade, we'll pick 2. For test 1, we'll pick 2. And for attendance, we're not using any of these suggestions because everybody has to follow the same ones. So what we'll do is we'll go down to the bottom, and what we do is we have to set our range for attendance. Okay? Tier 1 is for your lowest students, so your high score should be -4. And for tier 2, you're going to put 0. So for any student with 4 or more absences will be in tier 1. Any student with less than 4 will be in your tier 2 group. If you have more than 30 students, then you'll have 3 tiers. So we're going to adjust this so we have 3 tiers. And now your range is going to be -4 for your high. Whoopsie. -2 for tier 2, and 0 for tier 3. Okay, once you have that done, you can go on to fall tiering and targets. Now you can see that the spreadsheet puts everyone in their tiers, and then what it does is it averages them out into a preparedness group. So if we look at Billy, he was in tier 3 for his assessment or prior year grade, but he was in tier 1 for his attendance and for test 1. That put him in the tier 1 preparedness group. Now if you fear Billy really should be a tier 2 or tier 3 student, you may override him in the override section. If you are going to override a student, you must let your administrator know who's signing off on your SGO the reason for the override. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to the target score on the SGO assessment. So for our low-tiered kids who are taking their midterm, final, whatever your final SGO assessment is, our lowest students should receive at least a score of 65%. Our middle-tiered students will receive a score of, oh, we have an error. It's because we put 65%. We should only put the number 65. For tier 2, we'll put 75. Tier 3, we'll put 85. The next box is for the highest score they can achieve on the assessment, which is usually 100. And the target percentage for each group. This one you have to put a percentage symbol. So what this means is how many students you need to get at least a 3 on your SGO. So normally we use the number 70%. So let's use 70% for tier 1. So 70 of the students will hit the target assessment score, in which case you would get a 3. So of those students, of the 7 students, 5 of them need to get at least a 65 or higher for you to hit your target score and to get a 3 in your SGO. So we'll do that across all the tiers. So for something like tier 2 and tier 3, where 4 out of 5 of your students have to hit the target assessment score, you can change your target percentage. Let's say we change it to 60%. Now only 3 out of the 5 students need to hit the target score. Your percentage will be reviewed by the administrator signing off on your SGO. So that is a discussion you'll have with them about whether or not they feel your target percentage for each group is acceptable. So after we're done with that, we're done with our SGO. So we're going to go to Finish to our SGO form, which is the very last tab on the bottom. So in this first box, we're going to copy and paste our standards that we might have used for our SGO assessment or the rationale behind our SGO assessment. Then we'll scroll down. So we'll put all of it in there. We have our preparedness group set up. Next is the student growth objective. This is where we talked about the percentage of the students that will meet the target score. You will write that in this box as well and describe how the targets reflect ambitious and achievable scores for these students. Then we have your preparedness groups. Lastly, at the very bottom, it'll tell you what score you would get depending on the number of students that pass the SGO assessment. So, for instance, in Tier 1, if greater than or equal to 60% of the students hit the target score, then you'll get a score of 2 on your SGO. And that is it for now. You will sign, and you'll get an administrator's approval. When you go to print out your SGO, it will print only active sheets. Do not print out anything else. And it will print out just your SGO form.